Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here today. For those of you who are watching us live on Facebook, thank you for joining us. I'd like to announce a couple of different cases that we're working on. First of all is the case involving Carl, and that's C-A-R-L, Nathaniel Fredrickson, F-R-E-D-E-R-I-C-K-S-E-N. He pled guilty to 2 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, 1 count of attempted child molestation, 1 count of attempted sexual conduct with a minor under 15, and 1 count of attempted sexual exploitation of a minor. For these charges, he will be spending 35 years in prison. I'd also like to announce the indictment of Jacob Moises, M-O-I-S-E-S, Lozano, L-O-Z-A-N-O. Mr. Lozano will be prosecuted by our office. He was extradited out of Florida and brought to Arizona to face 20 charges, including 14 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor. And by the way, I should say this as to the first case as well. That will include those are images of child sexual abuse. 3 counts of aggravated luring of a minor, 3 counts of unlawful age misrepresentation, and this was a case that was submitted to our office by the Scottsdale Police Department. So it involves the defendant luring children through a video game platform. We sought a high bond, and so he is being held on a $500,000 cash bond. And as always, charges are not evidence and people are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Another thing is, many of you may be aware that we had a fentanyl forum last night. We did this at the Kroc Center in South Phoenix. We had nearly 300 people from the community that were in attendance to learn more about the poison that is just infiltrating our community. So I want to thank our many partners that worked with us to accomplish this awareness that is so greatly needed. And I would say I was there. Also, thank you to Board of Supervisor Steve Gallardo, for it's his district, and he came out as well, as have other members of the Board of Supervisors in the past. Clint Hickman is one, and just really made it a great community event. And you can tell just from the comments and the attention that was given that people are extremely concerned about this poison in our community. Now I want to pivot onto the case that has received a lot of attention, and that's the Preston Lord case. Just to give you a few updates on that, my office, all of the people in my office that are working on this case, and the Queen Creek Police Department held a full meeting last week. It was a large room and it was a full room. I want you to know that we continue to work together on the ongoing investigation and the continuing review of the submitted cases. And you may already have seen this. The Lord family, meaning Preston's dad, stepmom, and mom, through their attorney, have released a statement. You may have seen it. I have copies of it if you have not, but I have it up on the screen and I will read it. After an initial meeting, the Maricopa County Attorney continues to provide us with updates on her office's review of the case involving the death of our son, Preston Lord. The loss of our son is impossible to bear, and we understand that there is work to be done to achieve justice for Preston. We are exercising patience to ensure the best possible outcome. We ask members of the community and the media to do the same. Lastly, we are grateful for the outpouring of support and appreciate the upstanding individuals who have provided information to law enforcement. And I'm going to add to that and encourage anybody else out there who has additional information to please come forward to the police. Contact the Queen Creek Police Department, or if it's related to some other case, also contact the appropriate law enforcement agency. The family has said that they don't want to make any statements. The attorneys for the family will not be issuing any additional statements. So please understand, these are people who have lost their child, and they are handling something that most of us can't even imagine handling. And so I'm going to ask that everyone respects their privacy at this time. On a larger note, I want to talk about teen violence that we have seen focused on in the East Valley. Just yesterday, my office announced the indictments of 3 individuals who had recently been submitted to our office by the Gilbert Police Department. I'd like to give you an overview of the scope of what's been submitted to my office concerning these types of cases. This is excluding the Preston Lord submittal over the last month or so. So far, we've received 29 submittals from 2 different police agencies. You'll notice that Queen Creek is not listed because we're excluding the Queen Creek submittal on the Preston Lord matter right now. So these are from both Gilbert and Mesa Police Department. And then if we could see the next slide. So this represents, these submittals represents submittals involving 19 total individuals. There were multiple submittals on some individuals, so 13 total adults, 6 juveniles. We have thus far, and these numbers will be changing and we will update these numbers as we can. We have indicted 7 individuals. 6 of them were out of the adult number, and 1 juvenile who was direct filed into adult court. Again, these numbers will change, and if any additional arrests are made, the overall number will change as well. Most charges are related to assaults, different classes of assaults depending on the type of injury and various factors within the case. With the recent submittals, some juveniles have been direct filed, which means I will mention them, but as part of my office's policy, we do not talk about the specifics of juvenile prosecutions that remain in juvenile court. I will give one exception to that. There was a submittal on a juvenile related to an aggravated assault that was turned down by our office. And the reason it was turned down by our office is because when we researched it, we realized that we had already prosecuted that set of facts last year. So that case had already been handled, and it was really, it wasn't exactly a duplicate charge, but it was from the same set of facts. So I will, with that, open it up to any other questions. Other than the update that I gave you on the Preston Lord case, I won't be taking any questions related to that. So anybody have any questions? Morgan.
Rachel, just a check-in to see if you have decided whether you are going to label the Gilbert Goons as a criminal street gang.
We are still looking at that. I will probably have some additional information to give you on that in the near future. But as you know, there's actually a set process by which to do that. And so we're working through that set process.
And then just a quick follow-up. In some of these cases, some of these aggressors used brass knuckles.
Yes.
Used a weapon. What does that do to a situation where kids are in a fight or somebody's beating somebody else up? Does using a brass knuckle elevate something from simple assault to aggravated assault, and how would that affect some of these cases?
Yes. So, not to get too legalistic, but an assault is when you injure somebody or intend, put them in fear of being injured. If brass knuckles are introduced into that, obviously that can increase the level of injury, which could turn it from a misdemeanor into a felony. And the level of felony kind of depends on the level of injury. Some injuries can result in it being a class 4 felony. Some injuries can result in it being a class 3 felony, meaning serious physical injury. That is actually a prison mandatory offense. And then you can also look at whether the brass knuckles, and I certainly think you should look at this, are a deadly weapon or a dangerous instrument, because they certainly multiply the impact of the punch, and certainly multiply the injuries that are caused to the person. So it can definitely have a devastating impact to add those to any sort of fight.
Are our laws right now adequate in disabling the use of a brass knuckle? Is that what you need to prosecute these people adequately?
I know that there's currently an effort by John Kavanaugh in the legislature to list the possession of brass knuckles as a prohibited weapon. And so that's working its way through the legislative process right now. Nicole?
Hey, Attorney Mitchell, these are questions that we've been getting from the community about the Preston Lord case. Is there anything your agency still needs that may be out there in the community that they could bring to you that would help assist?
That's a very good question, and I want to walk the line between bringing us information and encouraging people to investigate themselves. Okay, so if somebody out there saw something or heard something with their own ears, I would encourage them to contact the Queen Creek Police Department. I would not encourage people to go out and do their own investigation because obviously that can interfere with the efforts of the police. But as I said last time, and this is really important for people to understand, we can't just pull a video off of social media and put it in court and it would be admissible. We actually have to have somebody who either took the video or picture, or somebody who was there and can testify to its accuracy, to authenticate it. So they can say, yes, I was there and this shows accurately what happened. So please, if you're out in the public and you have information, don't think, well, the police have a video, so I don't need to come forward. We need you to come forward if you have information. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so is that what you need, like direct video and people who can testify?
Anytime anybody has information about a case, we're interested in looking at it. And, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, there may be a different angle. There may be a video of something that happened immediately before or immediately after to give greater context. So you really don't know unless you're looking at the whole picture what might be helpful. So if anybody has anything from that night, yes, we would encourage them to contact the Queen Creek Police Department.
We know that the FBI is assisting from the investigation standpoint. Is this something where your office would ask or need assistance from like the Attorney General's office?
No, we're, as you know, the main prosecution agency in the county and are well equipped to handle the case, but it is just a complex case and we're working through it and we're going to do it right.
So if you find out that there's like either witnesses or people on the Pinal County side, could this case have to then go to the AG's office?
No, if there are witnesses on the Pinal County side, we still have the ability to reach out to those witnesses. Mm-hmm.
Hi, you broke down the number of individuals that had been indicted by your office, but based on the conference that Gilbert Police had last week, they mentioned how a lot of the individuals are related to more than one case. Could you break down how many cases your office currently has of this assaults related to teen violence?
Related to teen violence or related to what we're talking about today? Okay, related to what we're talking about today. So if we can go back to that slide that has the 13, 6, and 19. Somebody doing that? Okay, gotcha. Okay, so good question. So this is by individual, but underneath that, the 13 individuals represent 17 submittals. Now, without getting into specifics of each case, what I can tell you is that sometimes you'll get 2 submittals on an individual and you have to file 2 cases separately because they are different. They're not going to be usable together in court. Sometimes, on the other hand, they may be similar enough and the law allows us to join it. So 17 submittals may result in 13 indictments, or it could result in 15 indictments if we were able to join a few together. Okay, but that represents 17 submittals. And then with the juveniles, there have been 6 individuals but those were presented to us by a total of 12 different submittals.
Thank you.
Hi. So when it comes to cases where a minor has been direct filed as an adult, how do the prosecutors take into consideration the age of the defendant after you file charges?
Well, if it's, obviously it follows the same procedure, so that if we do direct file there, and I can refer you to 13505A, which is the mandatory direct file, we have to, under the law, direct file. Once it gets up here, it follows the same process as an adult. But what we do, yes, do we look at the age of the person? Yes, we take that into consideration. One of the things that I have made very clear that this office needs to do is to look at individual cases. We're going to look at, facts. We're going to look at people. We're going to talk to the victims and have a very specific approach to each case. So yeah, we would look at that.
So in what ways does that factor in? So what would that be in how you consider plea deals? Would that be in how you approach building the case? Like, in what ways does the age factor in?
I assumed from your question that you meant how it affects sentencing, and that's probably the most of how it would affect.
Right.
We're way too early at this point to talk about whether there's going to be a plea deal on any case or not.
I guess just in general then.
But what I will tell you is that the way the sentencing structure is in Arizona is each sentence has what's called a presumptive sentence, or what I would call a starting point. And so the judge is going to weigh and balance mitigating factors, aggravating factors. And I would say age is typically considered one of those, depending on how old the person is.
Right. But can you speak to how prosecutors take that? Like, I guess I understand that it's a mitigating factor in sentencing, but before you get to that point, how do prosecutors, do they look at a juvenile? You just said they do. I guess I'm asking, like, how does that manifest while a case is going through the system?
Well, I guess I'll answer from my own personal experience being in sex crimes. Obviously you had sex offenders who were everything from, 17-year-olds that were being direct filed on up to, quite a lot older. And it was just a factor that I would consider in terms of any sort of offer I would make. I mean, it's a factor. It's not the only factor. It's not the predominant factor, but it is a factor.
All right.
Hi.
Hi.
As has been stated a minute ago, there's been support for a brass knuckle ban, community level, state lawmakers. Is that something that you would support?
Yes. I mean, we're certainly seeing, what's going on here with juveniles using brass knuckles. One thing I would say, though, is there's always going to be a weapon. And so it's not going to be, the cure-all. We're seeing an incredible increase in juvenile violence of all sorts. And I've talked about this in the past, but I'll bring it up again. We are seeing an explosion, and I mean, that's a good word for it, explosion of juvenile gun violence. And one of the things that we've worked with the legislature on this year, in fact, Representative Quan Nguyen has agreed to run this bill, is to close up a loophole in our misconduct involving weapons statute, which allows minors to possess guns within their home, but does not require that there be parental consent for that. And that has frustrated parents. It's frustrated the police on being able to do something about it. And it also could bleed over into, for example, group homes, foster homes. And so Representative Nguyen has, as the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, has agreed to run that bill, and we're very, very appreciative. We think this will be very helpful. But there's always going to be a weapon.
And do you think lawmakers should focus on that alternative as opposed to focusing on brass knuckles?
I think you focus on where the problems are, and we're having problems with both.
Thank you.
Hello, you
you've already answered the majority of my questions. I did want to ask about Travis.
Don't you hate it when that
I know, it
happens?
just happens. Travis Surrender, 50 years old. I know
Uh-huh.
he's not related to the teen violence situations, but was arrested for drug possession.
Mhm.
I just wanted to know if you can tell us where that case stands. I believe that was a basket case situation, but where is that going so far?
I will get you updated information on that. The last time I checked on it, which was just a matter of a couple days ago, I believe they were still waiting for the lab results, which is typical for us to get in drug cases. But I'll have my comms people follow up with you on that one, just to make sure we're timely on that.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And then the other thing I did want to ask you just mentioned it, that loophole, because we have been following that.
Yeah.
With that legislation, just your thoughts on that legislation. Also, if you wouldn't mind explaining more of this problem with that loophole.
Well, what is happening, what we're seeing in our office and what the police are seeing is they're getting calls from parents who are saying, you know, my child has a gun. Could you come get it? Because I'm fearful of what will happen. And because it is not impermissible under the law for them to have a gun within their own home and parental consent doesn't matter, the police are unable to act on that. And so what this will do is close up that loophole, allowing the police to act on that. And, you know, hopefully heading this off at an earlier age because, you know, the purpose of the juvenile court system really is rehabilitation, as it should be. And if we don't capture that violent tendency or the tendency to carry guns around at that level, when they move into 18 years old, it's a completely different story for their lives. And so we definitely want to be able to intervene at that earlier age, and this will help us do that.
Gotcha. One other question. When you were talking about the teen violence cases, you did have to bring back charges to, I think it was Gilbert Police. Can you tell us a little bit more about that case? I thought you said for one of these cases, charges were submitted. You said, hey, he was arrested previously, I believe. It was kind of the same charges.
Yeah, it was from the same set of facts. And when we researched it, we realized we had already prosecuted it last year. And so we turned it down because it had already been prosecuted. So the case that had been prosecuted is still, you know, a legitimate case. But the submittal was turned down so we didn't duplicate file. So.
About Travis Renner, Gilbert Police did tell us last Tuesday that they got results for those drug charges
Okay.
from the lab. So I didn't know if you had any.
You know what? Maybe that information hasn't been conveyed to the attorney yet, but thanks for that. We'll look into that.
Okay, we'll check in with your office then.
Hi, just two questions about this slide from my newsroom. Is this also Mesa and Gilbert?
This is from that. Go back a slide, whoever's.
The previous one said.
So this is stemming from this slide.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's a breakdown of this slide.
Thank you. And then can you tell us what the dates are? Like when, how far back do these go? These submittals?
I can't give you an exact date, but it's within the last month or so. These are recent submittals to our office.
Okay, maybe if we follow it up via email, we can figure it out.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else?
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.